Welcome to the Take a Mulligan podcast with your hosts, Brian and Kenny Mulligan. We hope to encourage you not to quit and keep going. If you're at that place where you just want to stop and give up, don't. Second chances can happen. Try again and take a mulligan.
Well, hey, welcome to the Mulligan podcast, and we have a special guest today with us, CarrieVee, and that's what she's known as. And Carrie, we've been friends now for a few years now, probably 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
And so it is great to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
And so why don't we start out by just asking you, give us a background so people get to know who you are, and because I know you got a lot of stuff in your background, but give us just an overview. Who are you? Who's CarrieVee?
I'll give you the in a nutshell version of who is CarrieVee. Thank you for asking me on the show. I've been looking forward to this all day long. My background is, I really have been. You're both like, what?
Cool.
Yeah, I really have been. I started out in music. I have always been on a stage of some kind. My mom and dad recognized musical ability in me from the time I was very, very small. And they would put me up on the front steps or up on the porch or up on the pulpit at church somewhere to sing. And so I did a lot of singing throughout my entire childhood, through high school, through college. My undergrad degree is in music. I really thought that would be my whole life, was doing something in music. And for a long time, I did that. I was on stages singing. I worked with World Vision to get child sponsorships through my concerts. And I thought that would be the rest of my life. And then my life shifted through a divorce. And when I went through the divorce, I walked away from music and walked into corporate America. And in my time in corporate America, which was quite a long time, probably 15 years, I found myself losing myself because I lost the soul of myself. Music, speaking, connecting with an audience is my gift. It is a God-given gift that fills my soul when I'm involved in it. And so that time in corporate was a soul-sucking time. And I will share a little bit later how that pivotal moment came that I stepped back into who I am created to be. But
Now playing off of that though, is, so you said it was like in your soul, like it's if anybody's listened and they're in the public speaking in any way or done some of that stuff, it's so true, because it is a part of you that you can't get rid of. It's like, it's just part of who you are, that you want to communicate to other people. And and it's not like you want to be on stage. Like, it has nothing to do with that, right?
No.
Is that how you are?
Yes. It's not about being on a stage, though. I firmly believe all of us are always on a stage.
That's true. Yeah.
All of life is a stage, whether you're one-on-one with someone or at a Chamber of Commerce luncheon or wherever you are in a situation where you can connect with people. And for me, connecting with people is just in the inner weavings of everything I do. I love to connect. I love to communicate, whether I'm on a stage in front of thousands or I'm talking to you right here. This is what God has gifted me with. And walking away from that for so long left this huge void in my heart.
Wow. With the different environments that you do speak at, do you have a preference or one of your favorites, whether it's on a stage in front of thousands or at a small gathering of 20 people? Is there something that you've developed over the years that you really, really have a much more passionate about with how you're going to speak or where you're going to speak?
That is a great question. I can't say I love one more than the other. Being on a stage in front of thousands is exciting and it's exhilarating, and there are so many more people that you're connecting with. And when I'm in a small group, say a Rotary or a Chamber or a small women's group, or when churches invite me in maybe to speak to a small group of executives, that is also just as exhilarating. It's a different feel, but I love them both.
So then, okay, so you were in corporate America. So what are some advantages to corporate America? Because I've been here now, I'm in the DC area now. And I hear that a lot. because I run into people who are like, yeah, I used to be corporate America, now I'm out, So what are some advantages, if there are any? I don't.
Oh, well, I mean, the paycheck and benefits, those are,
Okay.
I
Okay.
mean, I'm not going to poo-poo them. That was
Okay.
the hardest part of walking away, was giving up these benefits and this regular paycheck. And I was walking into an unknown of, am I going to make money at this? Am I going to do about health insurance? Am I going to have health insurance? What happens if I get cancer? I mean, it just, all those
Yeah.
things played in your mind. Those are big advantages. And there are people who absolutely love corporate. And I am so glad there are, because we need them. And that is their
Yes.
skill set. That is their gift.
Yeah.
And we need to revamp the way that corporate executives are treated by their higher ups, and the way that they treat themselves, and the confidence and the worthiness that they feel. There's a lot of revamping that has to be done. But
Yeah.
there were advantages to corporate. For me, though, it is not my calling. It is not where God wanted me. And so there was always this push-pull the whole time I was in it.
So what did that look like when you got to that point where you realized you didn't want to be in that anymore? And what was the next phase? Was it going into podcasting? Was it going to public speaking? Did you have an idea when you left, or you just knew you wanted to be speaking to people? And what was that like?
This is my favorite question in the world. I was in corporate until I was in my early 40s. And my brother had been diagnosed with a terminal colon cancer. And he was actually diagnosed with this cancer about 2 days before I graduated with my MBA. And it was a very surreal time of life where we were all with my brother and walking with him through this horrific 3-year journey. And a week before he passed away, I went out to breakfast with him, and he was a shell of himself. He had not yet gotten the news that the cancer had spread to his liver, and his liver was almost just completely full of the cancer. But he knew he felt really bad, and he could barely hold his body up. And we were sitting at this table, and he reached across and he took my hand and he said, "You have put yourself in this prison, and it's self-imposed, and you hold the key. And the only person who can let you out of that prison is you. You know what your gifts are." And he implored me to promise him that I would spend the rest of my life helping other people choose life while they still had life to choose.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Wow.
promised him that I would. He died 1 week to the day later.
Wow.
And after he passed away, I thought about this promise I made him, but I had no idea what I was going to do with the promise. I had no idea what my future looked like. What did it look like to help other people? Was I going to go back on a stage? I didn't at that point feel like I had a song left in my heart. My whole world had shifted on its axis so many times by that point, with divorce and custody. And then my brother and I were 4 years apart, but everyone always thought we were twins. We looked alike. We were super close. And that shift just about threw me off balance completely. And I didn't know how to make this promise a reality. And a few weeks after he died, I had a dream. And in this dream, this gentleman was sitting in a restaurant. And when I walked in the restaurant, his back was to me, and I knew it was my brother. And I kept trying to get his attention, and I was calling his name and tapping his shoulders, and he was ignoring me. And I finally went and stood in front of him, and I said, "Billy, why won't you talk to me? I miss you. I just want to invite you to our house for dinner. I don't understand why you won't talk to me." And he looked up at me and he said, "I can't talk to you because I died. Don't you remember?
Wow.
I died. I'm only here to give you a message. Life is short, little sister. Choose wisely." And I woke up with, my heart was pounding. I sat up in bed. I scared my husband to death. I don't know. I think I just bolt up in bed, boom. And I looked at him and I said, "I'm going to quit my job." And he's, half asleep going, "Do what you got to do," And I knew the message was clear. It was time for me to make better choices. I didn't know exactly what the choices were supposed to be, but I knew I had to make a choice. So my first choice was not actually speaking or coaching or training on leadership and communication, my first step was into network marketing with health and wellness. And that was the door that started to open up every single door.
Wow.
It was, when I look back and I see the way all these dots connect, it still amazes me that one step opened up a myriad of opportunities.
I think you bring up something that's so critical at this point, because a lot of people want to do something more with their life because they feel that emptiness inside. They feel like, you know what, and it's not like they don't like their job or they're not making decent money or anything like that, or they don't like, can't wait till Friday and have to spend the weekend with the family and all that kind of stuff, and they're putting away for retirement. But there's something inside that wants more. There's something that knows they were meant for something different, and they don't do it, right?
Yes.
But one of the things I think I struggle with too, because I'm in a life change here too. It's we don't know what to do, right? And we're stuck in that moment where it's like, but if I do this, what do I do, right?
Yes.
And you know, there's that, you know how we get advice and it just sticks in your brain. Okay, this advice that sticks in my brain comes from a movie, okay, and it's probably not the smartest thing, but I think it's great advice, and it comes from Star Trek.
Okay.
And it was in the redo of the movies, so it's with the newest one, and it's a second episode where Captain Kirk gets demoted out of his captain position, and he's struggling, and he's like, and I think it's Spock or somebody asks him, he says, well, you know, what are you going to do? He goes, and he literally, because he's dealing with the demotion, he doesn't know what he could do, and he literally says, I don't know what to do, but I know I can do this. And I think it's a very biblical term where it's like, it's a faith step. It's like, I don't know the big picture, but I know this next step, and this next step for you was quitting your job, right? And when you took that next step, look what happened, right?
Yes.
So where did it go? Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, when we take the step, John Maxwell says, you don't have to always get exactly what you think it was you wanted. You just have to get closer. Take the step that gets you closer. And then that next step gets you closer. And that next step gets you closer. All or nothing mindset will leave you nothing every time.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are looking for that one big thing that's going to change my life and all that kind of stuff. And then they never do it.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So where did you go from there?
We can't jump 100 steps at a time. Where did I go from there? I worked within network marketing for about 2 years, and I loved it. I built a good team. I loved the products I was working with. And in the midst of leading team calls, I reconnected with my love of connecting and communicating and leadership. And I ended up on a coaching call with a business coach. I had won this call with her through another network marketing call. And I got on this call with her, and we started to work together. She was just someone that I knew I needed to work with in my life. And I started to invest in my own business growth. And one day we were talking, and I thought I was working with her to build my network marketing business. And on one of our calls, she said, can I just ask you something? Do you love network marketing? Do you really love it? And I said, oh my gosh, I love the products. I love the workouts. I feel so good. You know, I've lost this 100 pounds and I feel amazing. And she said, I didn't ask you if you like the products. I asked you if you are enjoying network marketing. And I had to answer honestly, no. It feels like corporate America to me. That's what it feels like. My income is based on what my team does. I know I don't love that. If my team decides not to work, my income goes way down. That feels like corporate to me. Yeah. And she said, you are such a gifted speaker and such a gifted coach. Have you ever thought of creating your own offer? And that created a whole different step where I started to create online courses and do one-on-one coaching and group coaching. And that led to speaking engagements. And then that led to joining the Maxwell Leadership Team and taking it to another stratosphere, being able to coach and lead with the Maxwell products.
Wow, that's great.
But that was a 10-year journey.
That's
well,
a long journey.
Like you said, you got to take one step at a time, though. It's not all in one, right? And so then how often are you doing speaking engagements with the Maxwell team? Is that a frequent thing, or is that just, you know, occasionally, and then you're doing your other stuff the other times of the year?
Yeah. So they provide training for us to be able to build our businesses. So it is up to me how many speaking engagements I want to book. They don't book them for us. I'm still an independent entrepreneur contractor. So I speak an average of 2 to 5 times a month. And I am also actively doing executive level coaching and creating speakers clubs and teaching other people how to get on the stages, and retreats, which I absolutely love hosting and putting on retreats for women, mainly for women, creating a business retreat for men and women coming up. It is part of me to be able to bring a group of women together and a group of speakers and put them on a stage and allow them to experience all of these speakers. So the short answer to your question is it really depends on how hard I work to book it. It is up to me. Like any entrepreneur, if I put my nose to the grindstone, I will have a whole month of speaking engagements. And if I don't, I don't.
So at some point you may hire a small staff, even part-time, to start doing some things for you so you could just go out and do what you love to do.
Yes. Yes, that is the goal.
That's cool.
So then where did the podcasting come into the whole mix of this whole journey of yours?
Podcasting, yes. And the books, they all kind of happened around the same time. COVID hit. And when COVID hit, I was home and I had been used to traveling at least 2 or 3 times a month, flying somewhere. And when COVID hit and we were all shut down, I just decided I would start a podcast. So I recorded 5 episodes and hired a team to put the podcast together, and off I went. And I have never looked back. I've never missed a month. For a while, I was doing 3 a month or 3 a week, which was a little overwhelming. So I pulled it back down to 1 a month. And I started the podcast in May of 2020. In December of 2020, I was diagnosed with cancer, the same cancer that my brother passed from. And then immediately following that, they found that the family carried a genetic disorder. And my mom, who was living with us at the time, I had her tested. She was positive for it. We got her in for a colon scan. They found massive cancer in her, and she died 19 days after being diagnosed with her cancer. Wow. And that led to the writing of books because it was something I had been holding back. And after my mom passed, it just poured out of me. Wow. So there are the steps that we take they often come when we don't expect them because life happens for us and it facilitates the step. And if we sit there and try to plan the steps, that's when we get lost and we get stuck because we don't know how we could possibly make it all happen. But if we will just allow life to happen for us and live in the flow, those steps become crystal clear.
Wow, you really had an amazing journey. It's really fascinating to talk to you. So now we're new to the podcasting world. So tell us a little bit about what is your podcast all about? What's the whole basis of yours?
My podcast is titled Coffee and Tea with CarrieVee, and it started out as a women's empowerment podcast. And within about 3 months, I had men emailing me saying, can you change it up so it's not all about women? Like even the intro says, hey, girlfriend, can you just change all that up and make it a podcast for everyone? And so it turned into an empowerment podcast for everyone. And then it really morphed into what it is now, which is communication, leadership, confidence, and clarity. And that covers so much. I have guests on that talk about health and fitness and talk about their faith, and some that talk about connection, communication. I've had people that come on and talk about your financial health. It covers so many things. It's as if we sat down in a coffee shop and people listened into our conversation. It's totally unscripted. We just talk.
That's cool. Great.
So you had talked about, and you said something about taking the steps and all that kind of stuff, but you took the steps, and a lot of people don't take the steps. So what have you found the difference to be?
The difference is deciding that fear will not hold me back. Fear, what we're afraid of is the feeling that fear brings, not actually the fear. It's the feeling that we are afraid of facing. And if we can put fear in the back seat and say, look, I don't really believe in being fearless. I think fear is an important part. It drives us very often. Fear keeps us from touching a hot stove. It keeps us from jumping out of the airplane without a parachute on. But fear can't fear becomes a problem when we put it in the driver's seat. So we just need to put it in the back seat and say, look, you can sit back there. You're not allowed to touch the radio dials. You're not allowed to touch the windows. You don't get to choose when we stop to eat or have a potty stop. You just sit back there and be quiet. When we can put it in the back seat and we can take the steps despite the fear sitting behind us, breathing down our neck, that's when change happens. But most people let fear drive. And it sounds so simple. It is a choice to not let fear drive. Hard to do. It's a simple concept. It's hard to do because we have had all of these hurts in our life. Maybe somebody has laughed at us for speaking in front of a classroom, or they laughed at us for a perceived failure. Failure are just stepping stones. Failure is what teaches us. That's how we get to learn. If I look back and listen back to my first videos or my first podcasts, sometimes I want to just take them down. But they are what taught me, and that's what teaches everyone if you will allow them. Why some people allow fear to drive the boat. I feel like sometimes people are in a hurry to be complacent through life so they can die. And I don't understand that. I don't understand not embracing life. And definitely since my cancer and my Lynch syndrome diagnosis, I've had a whole different outlook. I know this cancer could come back at any time because of my inability to fight cancer. I'm missing the cancer fighting gene in my body. And I know that from seeing my mom who had colon cancer years ago, my brother who beat it in the first year, but then when it came back, it was very aggressive. Same with my mom. I know what it looks like if it comes back. And I don't want to hear a diagnosis and wish I had taken steps. And that is true for anybody, whether you've had the diagnosis or not. That is true for anyone. And I don't want for anyone to look back and say, I wish I had.
So what are some steps that, because you said you wish you had, you don't want to look back, because maybe there's somebody who listen that is either worried about cancer or even struggling through it at this point. What are some just simple steps that you say, you know what, I'm glad I'm doing this? And it may not be radical, but just some simple steps that you're saying, yes, you need to do this if cancer is a risk.
Yeah. Boy, if cancer is a risk, take control of everything you're putting in and on your body. Everything. Think it through. Are you drinking good, clean, filtered water? Are you always picking up a plastic water bottle? There's a lot of research now that those plastic bottles have microplastics in them. So are you going for the glass and stainless steel? What are you focusing on as far as movement? Are you moving your body every day? Are you sitting down all day? Those little things add up. There are no guarantees. None of us has a guarantee on how long we have, but we may as well make the rest of our days, no matter how many they are, 1 or 1,000 or 2,000, whatever it is, we might as well make them the best. So be aware of what's going in and what's going on in your body.
So I want to come back around for just a minute because you gave lots of great advice along this whole way. But I want to go back to the public speaking thing because, again, there's probably a lot of people out there thinking public speaking is not my thing. I can't stand it. Personally, for me, I couldn't stand it either. I even took a public speaking class in college and hated it and didn't really jump out of that shell until I was probably in grad school. And then, like you said, I just recognized like, wow, I really actually like doing this now. And I don't mind standing up in front of people and I enjoy sharing information with people. So if you had to give any advice to people who are in that fear phase, which you talked briefly about, but when it comes to that public speaking thing, is there any advice that you would give people, or you think it's more just a natural gift that some have that some don't? Because in your world, I would imagine that you probably have trained or coached a lot of people that didn't think they could public speak, but now are. So, I mean, I think that's a really important topic there.
I love this topic, and thank you for the question. Yes, some people are more naturally charismatic. On the disc profile, I'm an I. I'm the influencer. I like to be on stage. I have my shortcomings, right? I don't like to follow through on things. I don't like the details. Like, don't ask me to do the taxes. Somebody else is going to do them. But I am naturally someone who doesn't mind speaking in front of people. However, that doesn't mean that my skills were very good when I began. Skills can be learned and anyone can learn to be a great speaker. The best way to try to say something is to try and say it. Get out there and say it. I did a lot of coaching on my own, and then I tapped into the coaching through the Maxwell Leadership Team, and I did one-on-one coaching with the main coach for the Maxwell Leadership what company? That's what I'm looking for. I worked one-on-one with him, sending him videos every week, and he would send me feedback. And so now I do speakers clubs. I'm just getting ready to launch one in a couple of weeks, where I will take people through a year of training on becoming a better speaker. And through that speakers club, they actually practice speaking almost every single week in front of everyone. The best way to get better at it is to do it. And when you're clear on your message and when you've practiced your message, that's when the confidence grows and the anxiety falls away.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to do it. Work with a coach, work with even in a group or one-on-one. You need someone to help you along the way. I did, and I did have a lot of what we'll call natural ability, but it doesn't mean I had great skills. I did not. I needed to learn them. Did that answer your question? I think I went all
that's great.
around the world.
That's okay.
Now Carrie probably won't say this voluntarily, so I'm gonna ask her. But she got to experience something really neat recently, and that's a John Maxwell. So John Maxwell, so basically, John Maxwell organization, they offer training, so you go through a whole school. Probably takes about a year to go through all the training, and then they have a big graduation ceremony or more. Then go through a big graduation ceremony down in Orlando. They do a whole big thing. But then you who have been through it get to go down once a year for additional training, correct?
Yes, actually twice a year, every March, every August, they have an International Maxwell Conference.
Wow. And then they offer this where you can compete to be on the stage. You make the top 30 and then the top 10 get to speak on stage. And Carrie just had that privilege to be one of the top 10 on the stage. So congratulations on that.
That's awesome.
Amazing.
Congrats. Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
what was that experience like?
Surreal. It was absolutely amazing to step on that stage after my very first International Maxwell Conference was March of 2022. I joined the Maxwell team just after my mom died. And so March 2022 was my first one. I didn't know anything. I hadn't tapped into any of the trainings yet. I was brand spanking new. I felt like a baby in a crowd of experts. And I saw these 10 people on the stage, and I remember thinking, I want to do that. I could feel it. It was drawing me in. And so, of course, I procrastinated it and let fear hold me back. And last summer, I just decided I am going to start working with this coach, and I'm going to go for it. Whether I make it or not, I am going to give it my all, and I'll keep going until I do. And so to be chosen in the top 30 was exhilarating. And then to get that notice that I'd made top 10 and I would get to stand on that stage where John Maxwell was speaking and a host of other incredible speakers, to be able to share that stage with them was a dream come true. And I allowed myself to sit in that for like 24 hours after it was over. And then I was like, yeah, that's over now. I can't rest on that. I gotta keep going.
Yes, you do. Yeah, we can't rest on our previous victories. We have to keep going.
No, I mean, it was cool, but now it's onward and upward.
Yeah. So what are some tips on public speaking you would give?
Tips are practice,
Okay.
practice, and work with a coach while you're practicing, because you don't want to practice bad habits. So work with someone who can give you that feedback. I hear too many people, and I was one of them for the longest time. Oh, I'm much better just speaking from the heart. It's not true. It is not true. If you're someone who says that, it's not true. You need to have your thoughts together. You may change it up, and you will change it up for each audience you speak to. And I hope you will, because you want to be able to connect with them, and every audience is different. But your main frame is going to be set, and you're going to have if you're using slides or if you're using notes or if you have it memorized, you have to know the roadmap of where you're going, and then practice it. Practice it in front of people, practice it on video, practice it in front of the mirror. Each way will give you different feedback, and you have to do it if you want to be effective. Ask for feedback. Don't be afraid to ask for feedback, and accept the feedback and put into practice what the feedback is. When I started working with the speaking coach, through the Maxwell organization, he would give me feedback. And sometimes I'd listen to the feedback and go, that was really good the way I did it. I can't believe you didn't like that. And in fact, the first few stories, he messaged me back and he said, no, not that one. Not that story. Not that story. And we just kept going. I had to have an open mind and be available to change and to shift according to the feedback from someone who is much more advanced than me. So if you want to be a great speaker, tap into that coach, tap into a coaching workshop or into a speaking workshop, and be willing to shift and change. That's the best advice I could give.
Wow.
So since we do have a podcast about taking a mulligan, taking second chances, doing over and all that stuff, you obviously have explained quite a few things to us. So if you had to kind of narrow down, what would you say might have been one of the biggest mulligans that you've taken in your lifetime or in your career that you want to share or encourage somebody with?
The biggest one is singing again, taking back the music and not being afraid of it. So very often when I am speaking, I will also sing during that presentation at some point. And that was very hard because it brings me mentally back to a time in my life that ended so differently than, I just never envisioned how my life was going to shift and change from a music ministry to a divorcee. And so when it would emotionally take me back, I just kept that part of myself shut down. And taking that second chance on music and allowing God to work through me through a vocal talent that I've had all my whole life, that was a huge risk for me, because when you don't lose something, when you don't use it, you lose it. And I had to work to get it back.
Wow. Is there any other questions you want to ask Bri as we
No, I think we could probably wrap up here. And, we just want to encourage everybody out there listening. Obviously, CarrieVee has an amazing story, very encouraging story. Lots of mulligans in there, lots of do-overs, and she took advantage of them, which is amazing. So we thank you so much for sharing your story with us. We want to encourage those out there who may be afraid to take a chance on a second career or another just life experience. Like Carrie said, don't let the fear hold you back, because that's just a demon in your head that's just lying to you, and that fear you have to overcome in order to achieve the things you want in life. So thank you so much for coming on today, Carrie. We appreciate you being here with us.
And we'll give you the final words. Give her final words of advice as we're dropping off here.
Oh, my final words of advice. Do it. Just do it. Take a chance on you. You are worthy of all of the greatness that you were born to have. So claim it and walk in it and wake up tomorrow excited to go out there and add value to people, change lives, and start with your own.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We know everyone can use a second chance or a do-over. So take a mulligan and try again. Thanks so much for joining with us today. Make sure you follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. Like, click, and subscribe.